You've been here before, haven't you? You meet a guy, he's charming, magnetic, and says just enough to keep you holding on. But deep down, you feel like you're the only one truly showing up. And it hurts because you give your time, your energy, your love, and all you get back is mixed signals and unmet needs. So let's talk about why this keeps happening. And more importantly, how you can finally take your power back. You're often drawn to what could be rather than what is. He might say all the right things, paint a picture of a future together, and even show glimpses of emotional connection when it suits him. But that's not the same as real emotional availability. It's easy to fall for the potential of a person, to get caught in the hope that he'll one day become the partner you need. The danger in this is that you begin to ignore the present moment, where the real signs are. You start excusing his distance, his lack of effort, and his inconsistency, thinking that maybe with more time or patience, things will change. But emotional availability isn't about what someone says they might give you someday. It's about what they consistently offer right now. A man who is truly ready won't keep you in limbo or make you question your worth. He will show up emotionally, not just physically, and be willing to have the uncomfortable conversations, make space for your feelings, and create a stable connection. Potential may sound romantic, but it's a dangerous trap when it blinds you to someone's actual behavior. You might find yourself investing more and more in someone who gives less and less. That imbalance becomes your emotional normal. You give extra effort to prove your worth, to be enough, to inspire him to change. But real love doesn't require you to prove yourself to someone who's unsure about you. If he's not emotionally present, it's not your job to pull him into clarity. What you accept becomes the standard. And if you keep accepting crumbs in hopes of a feast, you'll stay hungry. Reclaiming your power starts with seeing the difference between fantasy and reality. Love should not be a guessing game or a reward for endurance. It should feel mutual, grounded, and secure. When you choose to stop loving someone, who they might become, and start loving yourself enough to walk away from uncertainty, that's when things begin to change. You don't need someone to transform in order to feel loved. You need someone who's already capable of love and ready to give it now. You've always been the one who gives without keeping score. You pour your energy, time, and heart into the relationship, has been, thinking that your love can somehow reach the parts of him that are closed off. You believe that if you're patient enough, supportive enough, understanding enough, eventually he'll see it, he'll feel it, and open up. But the truth is, love doesn't work like that. It's not a project you complete through effort and sacrifice. When you constantly give without receiving, it drains you emotionally and leaves you feeling unseen. Has been. There's a deep H in loving someone who won't or can't meet you emotionally. You start justifying their behavior, telling yourself they're just scared or that they've been through a lot. And maybe they have. But someone else's wounds do not justify your emotional starvation. The more you give, hoping for a breakthrough, the more you lose sight of what you deserve. It's not selfish to want emotional reciprocity. In fact, it's the foundation of any healthy relationship. Being the emotional caretaker might feel noble, even necessary, but it quietly trains you to believe that your needs come second. You become the strong one, the steady one, has been, the fixer, until one day you realize you're holding a relationship together all on your own. That kind of love isn't sustainable. You start shrinking your needs, toning down your emotions, walking on eggshells just to keep things good. But love should never require that much self-abandonment. Reclaiming your power means recognizing that love is not about how much you can give to make someone else whole. It's about finding someone who comes to the table already to meet you halfway. You are not here to rescue someone from their emotional walls. You are here to be loved in a way that feels mutual, safe, and nourishing. The right person won't need you to carry the relationship. They'll stand beside you, carry with you, and give back just as much as they receive. Sometimes, what keeps you holding on isn't what you're getting, but what you're hoping will return. A single text after days of silence, a brief moment of vulnerability that felt real, or a weekend that gave you a glimpse of what it could be like. Those small, inconsistent actions begin to feel like something more than they are. But that's not true emotional connection. It's not enough. It's a cycle that leaves you constantly waiting, always wondering when the next small effort will come to keep your hope alive. These occasional moments might feel powerful, even intimate, but they're not rooted in consistency or growth. Instead, they become emotional breadcrumbs. Just enough to keep you emotionally invested, but never enough to actually nourish your heart. You start confusing these fleeting highs with a meaningful bond. The silence between those moments becomes longer, the effort becomes smaller, but you stay, hoping that the emotional presence you briefly tasted will eventually become the norm. The problem is, you begin adapting to the lack. You lower your expectations, telling yourself that it's okay to accept less as long as there's still something. You find yourself doing more of the work, initiating conversations, planning time together, has been, and forgiving the distance just because you don't want to lose the little you have. But in reality, what you're doing is training yourself to survive on emotional crumbs when what you deserve is a love that feeds you completely. Reclaiming your power means remembering that real connection doesn't come in pieces. Apology has been. You don't need to be satisfied with someone who only shows up when it's convenient for them. A person who truly values you will be consistent, clear, and emotionally present. Not just occasionally, but always. You are worthy of the kind of love that shows up daily, not the kind that disappears and resurfaces just enough to keep you doubting yourself. It's time to stop settling for the bare minimum and start expecting the kind of love that feels whole. There's a certain thrill in chasing someone who seems just out of reach. When a man is emotionally unavailable, he often becomes more appealing, not less. His distance feels like a mystery to unlock. His inconsistency like a test you're determined to pass. You tell yourself that if you can just say the right thing, do the right thing, be the right person, maybe he'll finally let his guard down. The chase becomes intoxicating because it gives you something to strive for, a sense of purpose in trying to win over his affection. But what often gets overlooked is how draining that pursuit becomes. While you're busy decoding his mixed signals, you're putting your own needs on the back burner. You become more focused on his behavior than your own emotional well-being. The chase distracts you from the truth. That someone who truly values you wouldn't need to be convinced to show up. The emotional roller coaster might feel passionate, but it's also unstable. Real love doesn't keep you guessing. It reassures. It shows up. It wants to be known. This addiction to the chase can often be tied to self-worth. You might feel like proving you can earn someone's love will confirm your value. But love that has to be earned through effort and endurance is not love. It's a negotiation. The more you chase, the more you reinforce the belief that you have to work for connection, rather than simply receive it from someone who's open and available. You become attached not to the man himself, but to the idea of finally feeling wanted and chosen. Letting go of the chase means shifting your focus inward. Instead of asking how you can get him to choose you, start asking if you're choosing yourself. Does this relationship bring you peace, consistency, and emotional safety? If not, no amount of effort will make it right. Reclaiming your power begins when you stop running after love and start standing still long enough to receive it from someone who doesn't make you chase at all. There's a kind of magic that happens when you feel chemistry with someone. The butterflies in your stomach, the wait time seems to disappear when you're talking, the electricity in the air when your hands touch. It feels like something rare, something worth holding on to. That spark becomes the sign you use to tell yourself, this must be special. But what we often don't realize is that chemistry alone can be dangerously misleading. It's powerful, yes, but it isn't always meaningful in the way we think it is. When you prioritize that intense spark over emotional availability, you risk attaching yourself to someone who ignites you but doesn't support you. You may overlook how they avoid emotional depth or disappear when things get serious because the excitement clouds your judgment. You start interpreting inconsistency as passion, moodiness as mystery, and detachment as confidence. Chemistry keeps pulling you back in, even when there's no actual compatibility sustaining the connection beneath the surface. Compatibility is quieter. It doesn't always come with fireworks, but it brings something deeper. A sense of peace, emotional safety, shared values, and real understanding. The person who is truly compatible with you won't play with your emotions or leave you wondering where you stand. They'll make love feel safe and steady, not like something you have to earn or chase. You won't feel the same high highs, but you also won't suffer the low lows. Instead, you'll feel grounded, supported, and genuinely seen. Learning to value peace over chaos is where your power begins to return. When you shift your focus from chasing intensity to finding emotional consistency, your entire experience of love changes. You begin to seek a connection that grows steadily over time rather than one that burns bright and fizzles fast. Chemistry can light a spark, but compatibility builds the fire that keeps you warm. That's the kind of love that lasts, and the kind you truly deserve. There are always signs in the beginning, even if they're subtle. He tells you he doesn't want anything serious, that he's not good at commitment, or that he's still healing from his past. Maybe he avoids deep conversations, dodges emotional questions, or shuts down when things get real. These aren't mysterious behaviors to decode. They're red flags waving clearly in front of you. But when you want something to work so badly, it's easy to brush those signs aside and tell yourself it's just temporary, or that with enough time, things will change. You start to justify the behavior because your heart is already invested. You say he's just been hurt, or that he needs space, or that he's different when it's just the two of you. You turn every inconsistency into an excuse, every silence into a test of your patience. The truth is, the more you care, the easier it becomes to rewrite his actions to match your hopes instead of facing what's right in front of you. You hold on to moments of connection and ignore the patterns of distance. Deep down, there's a part of you that believes if you just love him enough, he'll realize you're the one. But love doesn't work that way. Wology has been. You can't force someone to be emotionally present. You can't heal them with your loyalty. And the longer you stay in a space where your needs aren't met, the more you teach yourself that this is all you can expect from love. That cycle slowly chips away at your confidence and your ability to trust your own feelings. Taking your power back starts with believing what you see, not just what you feel. If someone shows you through their words and actions that they're not ready, not willing, or not capable of showing up emotionally, believe them. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means they're not for you. And you don't have to keep proving your worth to someone who keeps showing you their limitations. You deserve a love that's clear, consistent, and whole, not one you have to keep fighting for in the shadows of potential. Sometimes the reason you keep settling for emotionally unavailable men is because somewhere deep inside, you've started to believe that real love doesn't exist. You've had your heart broken, your trust shattered, and your hopes quietly let down so many times that now, the idea of someone showing up fully feels more like a fantasy than a possibility. You tell yourself that maybe this is just how love is, difficult, one-sided, and filled with longing. It becomes easier to accept less when you convince yourself that something better probably doesn't exist. This belief begins to shape the way you approach relationships. You stop asking for more because you don't think more is real. You tolerate distance, silence, and confusion because at least it's familiar. You might even start to wear your strength like armor, knowledge has been, pretending that you're okay with things as they are, when deep down, you're starving for something deeper. But every time you accept half love, you move further away from the kind of relationship your heart truly needs. The truth is, love that is stable, mutual, and consistent does exist, but you won't find it when you're still entertaining people who are incapable of giving it. That kind of love starts to appear when you finally decide to stop settling. It shows up when you choose to believe that your emotional needs aren't unreasonable, that you're not asking for too much, and that you don't have to shrink yourself just to keep someone interested. It begins with faith in something better, even if you haven't experienced it yet. Reclaiming your power means daring to believe that you are worthy of deep, healthy love, even if it scares you, even if it feels unfamiliar. You don't need to be perfect or fix anyone else or wait until you're less emotional. You only need to know your worth and refuse to accept anything that falls short of it. The moment you believe love is possible, the kind where you're seen, heard, and cherished, is the moment you begin to protect yourself from anything less. Being alone can feel intimidating, especially when you've grown used to tying your sense of worth to being desired or chosen by someone else. You might stay in situations that hurt or confuse you simply because the idea of leaving and facing silence feels worse than staying and hoping things improve. The quiet of being single can stir up fears that you're unlovable, that something is wrong with you, or that you'll never find the kind of connection you crave. So, even when a relationship is emotionally unfulfilling, it feels safer than facing the unknown. But in that fear, you begin to abandon parts of yourself. You ignore what you need, silence your voice, and overextend your energy just to keep someone around. You start thinking it's better to be with someone halfway than to be with no one at all. The relationship becomes less about love and more about not having to sit with your own emptiness. Yet the cost is high, because in trying to avoid loneliness, you end up feeling even lonelier within the relationship. What often gets overlooked is the beauty and power that can be found in solitude. Being alone doesn't have to mean being lonely. It can mean finally having space to reconnect with who you are, to heal the parts of you that keep attracting pain, the apology has been, Understand what kind of love actually feels good to your soul. It's in those moments alone that you get to rebuild your standards, your identity, and your sense of peace. Things that often get lost when your worth is wrapped up in someone else's attention. Reclaiming your power means leaning into solitude instead of running from it. It means realizing that your fear of being alone is not a reason to stay in something that breaks you down. The more you learn to enjoy your own company, to sit with your thoughts, to find peace without needing another person to complete you, the more powerful you become. And from that strength, you begin to attract not from need or fear, but from confidence and clarity. And that's when real love finally has space to walk in. When you care deeply about someone, it can be incredibly hard to draw a line. You want to be understanding, flexible, and patient, so you start making small compromises. You cancel your own plans to accommodate his. You wait hours or even days for a reply without bringing it up. And you keep forgiving the same behavior over and over, convincing yourself that love means being available no matter what. But what you don't realize in those moments is that you're slowly teaching him how to treat you. And what you're teaching is that your needs can wait. Each time you put your own boundaries aside to maintain the connection, you chip away at your own self-respect. You may think you're being kind or supportive, but in reality, you're bending yourself to fit into a space that was never made with your needs in mind. You begin to lose sight of your own worth, believing that keeping the peace is more important than honoring what you actually feel. The more you bend, the less you recognize yourself, and the more invisible your voice becomes in the relationship. Eventually, resentment begins to build. You might not express it openly, but deep down, you feel unappreciated, overlooked, or even taken for granted. That internal conflict between wanting to be loved and needing to be respected creates emotional exhaustion. You feel stuck between not wanting to lose him and not wanting to lose yourself. That's where boundaries come in, not as walls to push people away, but as clear lines that protect your energy, your peace, and your sense of self. Reclaiming your power means learning to say no without guilt. It means understanding that your feelings matter just as much as anyone else's. Boundaries are not about being difficult or distant. They're about showing up for yourself in the same way you've shown up for others. When you start honoring your own limits, you stop inviting people who only love you when it's convenient. You begin to attract relationships where mutual respect is the foundation, and where your needs are not just acknowledged, but valued. When you've spent so much time trying to be chosen by someone else, it's easy to lose sight of who you really are. You start shaping yourself around what you think they want, becoming more agreeable, quieter, more patient, even when it doesn't feel natural. Your needs take a backseat to the desire to be accepted. Slowly, without realizing it, you drift away from your true self, all in the hope that they'll finally see your worth. But when you're constantly adjusting to keep someone else comfortable, you disconnect from the parts of you that once felt confident, joyful, and whole. Living in a space where you're someone's maybe creates deep emotional instability. You find yourself holding back your opinions. One has been walking on eggshells and tolerating behavior that doesn't sit right with your values. You start measuring your self-worth based on how someone else treats you. And when that treatment is inconsistent or distant, your confidence begins to erode. You question if you're too much, not enough, or just hard to love. The truth is, you're not the problem. The problem is trying to be loved by someone who isn't emotionally available to begin with. Reclaiming your identity begins when you stop waiting for someone to choose you and start choosing yourself. Apology has been. It means reconnecting with your voice, your desires, and your boundaries. It means asking what you truly want in a relationship, not what you're willing to accept just to feel needed. The moment you stop proving yourself to people who don't show up fully is the moment you start stepping into your own power. You begin to see that love doesn't require you to shrink, chase, or convince. It allows you to be fully seen just as you are. When you reclaim your identity, your energy shifts. You no longer tolerate confusion as a form of love. You begin to recognize emotional availability not as a luxury, but as a basic standard. You don't waste time trying to unlock someone's heart when yours is already open and ready. And that's when the right people begin to notice you. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally showing up as your full, authentic self. That's where real connection begins.